The saddest farewells between humans and animals. Sometimes humans and animals form such a special bond that it's difficult to say goodbye.
It's okay. You don't have to do anything.
You better grab a tissue, because these stories will surely make you cry. The Last Wish. Animals treasure those who have always been there for them. An example is this giraffe, who offered all its love to the man who cared for it when it last saw him. Mario loved animals, so he spent almost half his life working at a zoo in Rotterdam, the Netherlands, until sadly, a brain tumor stopped him from doing so. With little time to live, Mario made a last wish: to return and say goodbye to his beloved long-neck friends. Then something wonderful happened. Seeing him on his hospital bed, a giraffe recognized him, stuck out its head, and gave him one last kiss, saying goodbye with sadness in its eyes. I believe that in that last encounter, besides saying goodbye, this animal also wanted to say thank you. The Final Mission. This is the story of two heroes who worked hard every day to fight crime. Jason was a policeman who patrolled the state of Kentucky with his faithful partner Figo, a German shepherd who was always ready to watch his back. Both had lived many adventures together, successfully solving cases. However, in the last one, Jason went out to fulfill his duty alone, perhaps because he felt it was something dangerous. Unfortunately, it was, and Jason was shot and killed in an ambush. At his funeral, Figo was there to pay his last respects.
Would break his poor heart.
Indeed, it was a devastating picture. The dog approached the grave downhearted, began to sniff, and put his paw alongside the casket, saying goodbye to his best friend, whom he couldn't protect. This was its final mission. A neighing cry. The love of a horse is so great it can stay by your side till the end.
You're my friend. I love you.
This was the case for Sereno, a noble steed who spent 8 years next to Wagner, his rider and best friend. They both looked after the cattle in the city of Cajazeiras, Brazil, until the cowboy died in a tragic motorcycle accident. Since Wagner's brother knew how much his horse meant to him, he decided to take it to the funeral. Such was the sorrow of the poor animal that during the ceremony, it didn't stop neighing sadly, as if crying. But the saddest thing for the heartbroken horse was when the owner's coffin was placed on a vehicle to be taken to the cemetery. At that moment, Sereno approached and nuzzled the coffin with his head, saying goodbye to his beloved companion. An innocent farewell. A pet's death is always difficult to face, but when it happens as a child, you're overwhelmed by your feelings. Just look at the little Cohen, who innocently decided to hold a simple yet heartfelt funeral for who has been his best friend until then, his goldfish called Top.
Does this mean we have to say goodbye?
Sadly, yes. Showing all the affection he had for him, Cohen holds in his hands his little dear fish that had just passed away and sweetly kisses him. He then flushes the animal down the toilet. It was all over. Top was gone forever. Upon realizing what happened, the little boy immediately burst into tears, comforting himself in his mom's embrace, who was by his side during that sad moment. Eternal loyalty. Remember the story of Hachiko, the dog whose loyalty went beyond his master's death? Well, there's a cat version. This kitten, in central Java, Indonesia, kept mourning her owner a year after her death. This was confirmed by Kelly, a local resident who decided to adopt her after hearing her meow every day over a blue headstone. As soon as he took her home, the kitten escaped and returned to Ibu Kundari's grave, the old woman who cared for her as lovingly as if she were her own child. Besides Kelly, many people wanted to shelter the hopeless animal, but it's useless. Even under the ruthless heat, she doesn't abandon the place where her only owner lives, which only leaves briefly to return to the house where she once lived with her great friend. A smile before leaving. No distance can break apart a true friendship. Like Lisa and her beloved horse Jake, who came from afar to say goodbye. The two began a special bond 16 years ago when she adopted him after his previous owner could no longer care for him. However, Lisa struggled with an illness since little. She had cancer. She managed to beat it 5 times, but this time, her body couldn't resist. After knowing she only had a few days to live, her daughter decided to bring Jake from her farm to the hospice where Lisa was. As soon as he saw his best friend, Jake approached her as fast as he could to express all his love one last time. The horse laid his forehead on his owner's face, and they could both say goodbye with a smile. Goodbye, Jaden. When you're little, there are things hard to understand, but that must be faced no matter how painful they are, as Lynn did. When she was born, Jaden, a 7-year-old bulldog, was already waiting for her at home. He and the new member of the Baker family were so fond of each other that they became inseparable. But time is unforgiving, and years went by. While Lynn was 6 and brimming with energy, the dog was 13. He could no longer see or hear, and could barely walk, so in an act of compassion, Lynn's family decided to put their pet to sleep. With tears in her eyes, the little girl had to accept that the best thing for her friend was to let him go. She then hugged him tightly, and Jaden passed away. Take my hand. Nothing sadder than having to say goodbye to the friend who was by your side for years, but even at those times, they're there for you. A couple had raised this cute Russian blue kitten called Little Andrew, and even when he was 15 and a half years old, he filled their days with love. Unfortunately, because of his old age, the kitty fell ill, and his daily sweet purr died down. It was time to let him go. Both heartbroken humans were on their way to Andrew's last visit to the vet, unable to hide their sadness. It was at that moment that, trying to say goodbye and comforting them, the kitten approached them and placed his little paw between his owner's hands. The moment was captured in a touching picture which broke everyone's heart on the internet.
I'll never forget you.
Farewell in the hospital. When Ryan met Molly, it was love at first sight. He was walking near a cemetery in Sutter, California, when he saw a small stray boxer. He immediately welcomed her into his life. However, she'd say goodbye to him years later. The two enjoyed their days together until, suddenly, a brain hemorrhage took Ryan to the hospital. The poor dog was waiting for him at home, but couldn't understand why her master didn't return after so many days. Upon being declared terminally ill by doctors, Ryan's family decided to take her to the hospital to say goodbye. Such a shocking meeting. Molly had never seen her best friend connected to endless tubes that stopped her from even giving him a loving lick. It was an understandable grief. This would be the last time she'd see her playmate. And now, I'll show you a touching moment featuring a little animal which really broke my heart. I'll never forget you. The love dogs have for humans is unmatchable and can be seen even when their beloved one is no longer by their side. This was the case for Wiley, who showed a really emotional gesture. The loyal dog was with his owner at the grave of Gladys, the family's beloved grandmother, when he suddenly threw himself down on the tombstone and began to breathe heavily with a deep expression of sorrow, as if crying. The scene is heartbreaking. Immediately, those by his side felt sorry and stroked the poor puppy to comfort him, but he didn't leave the place where the remains of the person who meant so much to him rested. After watching all these farewells, I have a lump in my throat. So, which of these stories did you find most touching? If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. If you want to see more interesting videos about animals, watch this and this video.